Welcome back to the podcast. My special guest today is Michelle Murray with Salah Academy of the Arts in Friendswood, Texas. Michelle, let's start from the beginning. How did you get involved with Salah? Was Salah your project, or was that something that came from someone else that you took over? Or tell us about the origins of this.
Okay. I had studied some amount of theater in college. I thought it wasn't a practical thing. I thought, oh, that's not something you can really, do something with. So I studied it in college, but I had about I got about as many classes it would take to get a minor. I don't know. That probably didn't make sense. I already had a major and a minor, and I got another minor in drama. I just never declared it. So I was interested in theater. I studied in theater. When I came back to the area, I had a lady at my church said, "Hey, my daughters want to take drama. There's nothing in the area that we like." There was a group, I don't even know who it was, and the director was kind of mean or something like that. And so she was just saying, "Hey, we'd love to have a drama class." So I just started it. And it was just a small group at Trinity Fellowship Church, but it grew very quickly after that. So that was 2001. So, and it's been going ever since. And at first, I was just working a secretary job in the area, teaching in the evenings. And then I combined it with English lit classes, and I was teaching full time with Salah Academy for the Arts. And then during COVID and with development of different opportunities for those types of classes, now currently I'm teaching at another full-time school and also doing Salah theater classes in the afternoons, evenings. So now we just only offer theater classes, focus only on those, and that's what Salah is doing.
Okay. So let's go a little further back. It sounds like you've had some experience with drama and theater in the past. Can you walk us back to those origins? Is it something that you've been participating in since you were in school, or you're like a young child, or no?
I think I was in school plays, just school like local, very small, tiny things. And then I went to Bob Jones University, and they love theater arts. They put a lot into their productions. And so I started actually first off in the stage, backstage. And then, of course, like I was interested in the acting as well. But I was also writing major. So I got into writing scripts and actually kind of came in it from a different angle. I was interested in acting, and but I focused on all the aspects of it. So the directing, the stage craft of it, the acting, all of it. Just from interest. And when you go to university, they have all the opportunities to jump into big productions and get involved that way. So I just jumped in as many things as I could.
And jumped in head first. Okay. That's what a lot of people do. I've heard similar stories, not exactly your story, but similar stories where it's like they never thought they would get involved with it, and one thing led to the next thing, and next thing to know, they develop a passion for it. Sounds like you did the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, stagecraft. Now, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've heard the phrase. I think I know what it means, and there's probably a lot of people that may be watching or listening to this that would, come from the same perspective. What does that mean?
So it's really just all the different types of things you have to tell a story in the sense of, the set, the props, the lights, the sound, and if you really think of it's basically visual storytelling, visual audible storytelling, which is a unique so my major was storytelling, was creative writing, it was telling a story. And I think I was just really fascinated by the atmosphere you could create, the way you could bring characters on a stage, and the acting in combination with lighting. And I think lighting was one of my favorite things in a show, is just the way that the lighting combines with the actors' expression and movement to create a dramatic moment on stage and say something to the audience through that combination. And of course, I loved, painting sets and stage makeup and costume design. And I think one of my books said every moment on stage should feel like a portrait, like you just saw a beautiful painting. So you just like move through like portrait and then a new portrait and a new portrait. And then of course, obviously there's all the acting and the emotion of, creating the moment within the character and character development and all of that.
Okay. Now, when it comes to writing, and you're talking about storytelling, so as a journalist, we have the five W's, right? Who, what, when, where, and why. And I always add an H. I add how to that.
Mhm.
How does that differ, if at all, from how you go about writing a script and or telling a story visually on stage?
I think sometimes within fiction, we say, you need to have a beginning, middle, and end. And that's just boils it down to, I mean, I think in a way, as a writer, you make it way too complicated and you're thinking all these different levels. But in the end, you want to have a climax, you want to have a beginning, you set up with the stories, you build to that climax. And, it should feel like the characters are moving because they need to move forward and something needs to happen and the action is rising and then you solve that conflict, whatever it is. And then, that you should feel like we went on a journey together and it was important and you had that build and then you had that resolution. So that's often what fiction is.
Okay. So, Selah, what does Selah mean? Is there meaning behind it?
Yes, it's from the Psalms
Okay.
and it just means think on it. We think. We actually don't know apparently I think what it for sure means, but people assume that it just means reflect on this. Think on this. So a psalmist will write and then at the end say Selah. Kind
Oh.
of just like, hey, pause, reflect.
Hmm.
So that is our goal to give the community something to think on, something to reflect on, kind of a pause, a moment away from their daily lives to see something, to think on something, and to reflect on it. And we are a Christian studio, and we want to do shows that are meaningful. And sometimes we just do the classic popular shows. We're also our goal is to also train actors to be excellent in what they do. And so we want to work on things that are excellently written, things that are excellently done and produced. But we also want to create something meaningful that can give some people something to pause and reflect on.
Okay. Start early on. You talked earlier about early into this journey. As a parent talking to you about having some classes or teaching some kids. How did you go from that to actually formalizing a group? And now this is a thing. This is a living, breathing thing, not just a few people that were you're kind of teaching things to here and there.
I think it comes pretty naturally, I guess. I love complicated projects and I love like immediately I'm like, okay, one, two, three, how do I put the steps together to get that? And I think I just naturally go like, oh wow, can we do this hard thing and how do we get there? So I love the challenge. I love putting my mind to something and doing it. And I love community. So I love getting people together and having community with people. And I love the actors. I love like that's one important aspect of theater that I really enjoy. And so yeah, we just got they were the girls that were interested were in high school. So I just gathered a bunch of that age kids and I some of them were and so at the time I marketed it to homeschoolers
Right.
because they don't have the opportunity to do theater in a group in school. It's a good opportunity for kids to get out and have community and fellowship with other kids. And so I think sent out some emails, talked to people that I knew, got a little group going, and then and we also offered an elementary class that year too. So I offered it to elementary and high school, and we immediately had I think 10 to 15 people in each class, about 30 kids. And then we just started meeting weekly. So let's just meet every Thursday night and go through some scenes and put a show together at the end of the semester. It was very, very small. So I mean, I was used to having a university size theater department where they had three different theaters on campus and we could just go into the room with all the tech gear and get whatever lights we wanted and get whatever props we needed and costumes and things. And so then suddenly I had nothing. And so the acting was easy to start with. You don't need anybody, nothing but like chairs in an empty room to start acting.
Right.
And then like learning how to get all of the other, things that you need, like backdrops and, lights and stuff like that. It was just a gradual process of gradually accumulating all of those things and, pick simple shows at the beginning, like an indoor. I think we did Harvey the first year. It's just in a house, in a hospital, which it's all indoor with chairs and things. So it's not too difficult. I don't even think we had backdrop. We just used a wall in the room that was the right color. And we set up some lights and lit up the wall and put chairs on the room. And, the kids acted really well. And then we just grew after that and gradually accumulated other things. And
And so has the church that you perform in now or teach in and perform in now, they've been there, I guess, more or less since the beginning, right?
yeah, yeah. I think they started in maybe 96 95, 92, somewhere in the 90s. Like that was when that church was founded. And but we've been there the whole time.
Okay. I know I've been
Mhm.
to a performance there, and I know there's a, is it kind of like a, like you describe it better than I can. It's like an annex or a side, like a hall, a church hall or something like that. And
Yeah, they're really generous to us. We're in their worship center. So yeah, but the style of worship center that it is a I would call it a black box theater if you're
yeah,
talking
yeah,
terms. Of course, in a church, it's the worship center.
right,
But basically, we always move the chairs in and out. And at the church, we'll have worship and then we'll move all the chairs out and have a kids program and the kids are running around playing games. And so it's a big gym type, worship center. So this type of thing would work well in that type of setting, not in a church with pews and,
right.
and things. But so they've been so generous. It's Trinity Fellowship Church, and they've been so
Mhm.
generous to us in letting us just move set pieces in and backdrops and rearrange everything during the week. And then we take it all down. We have church,
Mhm.
put everything back up for church, and then Sunday night, take everything down, put the drama stuff back up for rehearsals and more performances. So.
Right. So, talk about the differences between programming that you're doing with more of a faith perspective as opposed to one may experience in typical community theater. For those who don't know, I mean, I would
Uh-huh.
know and you would know, but for someone who doesn't know the difference.
Right. And I think every Christian theater company has to decide, well, what does that mean to be
Mm,
Christian? Like how are we going to do it now? And some theater companies might say everything we're going to do is a performance based on the Bible or something like that, or like a biblical story or something. And there's some groups that say that. And, you just kind of go, this is where we're going to go with this Christian company. And what our goal is to train performers to be excellent in what they do for God's glory, for them to perform Christian-based stories now and also in the future. And so part of the process is their training. So I think that in the world of Christian like scripts and things. We have some really great ones out there. And we're still developing that. There's Christian writers are still developing in craft and skill and creating excellent shows. So sometimes it's also good to act in a show that is crafted, might not be necessarily a Christian author, but it's well done and it's an excellent opportunity for them to learn a particular acting skill. Or we do musical theater too, so singing, dancing, all of that. And then eventually, hey, they're going to have those acting skills and they can go and perform a Christian show that they wrote if they want to. But all the shows that we do, and then sometimes we just get that opportunity to perform like the life of Christ or something with an incredibly Christian message. And we want to go for those and have those frequently within our repertoire that, it's not that we never do those shows, it's just that we train for them and then we do them and they do them well. And then all the shows that we do choose to do, we're always considering whether it's going to be appropriate for Christians to do. So we're not going to do a show that is against biblical principles. And if we do something that we're just going to like treat it really well or like talk through it or say, okay, is this Christian? Because, in theater, it's a story and not everyone in a story is a hero. Sometimes you have a villain. Sometimes you have people do things that are not right. And then eventually they have a character change, maybe, and they change into doing something better. So there's a lot of opportunity to talk through the moments and go, okay, this character is not being great, right? Is this character what they're doing? Is it Christian, non-Christian? In the end, do they change? Do they not change? What is the story saying? You always have to ask, what is the story saying about this activity? Like, for example, I think Les Mis is one of the most Christian shows
hmm,
that we do, Les Miserables. It's about God's grace and the way that he can transform lives. And there's the main character is a convict, a prisoner, he's a thief. And then his life is changed. And then he turns into someone who is benefiting the community and giving people jobs and things. One of the storylines is a woman who's a prostitute, but she then, because this other convict's life has been changed, he reaches out and helps her out of the situation that she's in. So you see God working in people
mhm.
and creating change and people loving each other and lifting each other up out of a terrible situation. So there's content there that's like, okay, well, that's not something Christians should do, be a thief or, but
Right.
it's I think it's showing the character of God and it's showing that we can change too, like humans can change.
Okay. Okay. So, do you just teach kids, like maybe high school and below, or do you also have an adult program?
So we do have an adult program now. It's
Okay.
called Salah Act. And so it's for adults of any age. I think the group is right now focused a lot on the college age group. So they don't get college credit or anything, but it's kind of nice to, when you're working really hard in college, just have that opportunity for like a, creative outlet. Just makes life great, even when you're doing maybe a math degree or someone's studying law, someone's studying engineering, but just love to get together on a Saturday morning and do art together. So, and then some of them are, motivated and trying to work in the world of, moving up and acting and things. But every age is welcome. You don't have to be in college. It's kind of that younger adult feel currently right now. But they actually we used to call it the college group. And
Okay.
right now they said, no, we don't want to be that group. We want to be the adult group because we want everyone to join us. We want older, younger, all
Okay.
adults to join.
Okay. And how big would you say that group is currently?
I think there's 20 people in the
Oh, wow.
cast currently, and I think we have a group meeting. We just communicate, and people just pop into shows when they're available, and then pop out when their semester is busy. So I think there's like maybe 40, 50 people on the
Hmm.
total group that have been involved, and then sometimes are involved or not currently.
Right. Michelle, talk about the community theater, I guess scene, if you will, in this region. When I say region, now you're in Friendswood. People might be watching this from anywhere. They don't know where that's at. That's if you look at a map, you've got follow the coast, and Galveston is sort of about 20 miles, and that's sort of where we're at. I'm in Lake City, and she's in neighboring Friendswood. But in this area, now I know there's a few theater groups, but how would you describe the community theater scene?
I think we have good options now. The thing is, I'm always doing theater, so I have terrible hours for getting to go see other theaters because I'm always in productions, and
Right.
so I'm like I do try to go see the other shows. I know that we've got Purple Box, and I hear good things about what's going there. I've got Ovations, which
Mhm.
is new. I haven't gotten to see them yet. Of Jetpack, I've been able to see some of their shows. Um, and I'm sure there's probably some other ones. I know some have come and gone. I think that it is. Um, Clear Creek County Theater, they do some
Mhm.
good shows. I think it's maybe sometimes hard to keep it. It was hard to keep it going through 2020. I felt like I was maybe one of the few that was making it through the 2020 season of COVID and such. But I think that, sprout up and do well, and then not I feel like I can't always give enough roles to all the people who are doing really excellently. And I work really hard. I'm double casting shows, and I'm doing, every age group is doing 2 shows a year and double cast, and I'm always working hard to get all of them to have an opportunity to, really have lead roles, and so based on that, we have 75 kids in the high school musical class, which is quite a lot, much more than Broadway usually has on a cast. And
Oh,
so um I would say it seems like there's a need for it in the area, and I don't think we have an overabundance of theaters in the area. I think that, you know,
okay. The business of theater. I know some people who make a living doing what you're doing, where they're teaching and putting on shows. I know people who are the typical starving artist, as it were. I mean, they may make a little bit here and there, but they're definitely depending on a real job, quote unquote, somewhere else. Where do you fit in that categorization? Is that an accurate assessment?
of like, yeah, whether I'm a starving artist or like
No,
have it
not
as a real
necessarily
job.
just you, but I mean, would you say in general that stereotype, either you're making it really well or you're kind of just barely making it? Is that a fair stereotype for
Yeah, I
people in
think
your
so.
position?
I think it's there's a lot of artists. There's a lot of people who love doing this, and they're all excited to
Mhm.
do this craft. And so I think that maybe we have a lot of folks trying to get jobs. I think it's possible. Just have to be smart about it, and be wise about it, and take what's out there and not be too picky about it. But I think there's a lot of variety of what you can do with theater. I think, I mean, there's Broadway. There's a great theater out in Branson, Missouri, Sight
Mhm.
and Sound Theater. If Christian theater artists, huge theater. It's actually bigger than a Broadway stage. And they do really excellent shows. There's people do like cruise ships and, things like that. People can use theater. I had one that she became an elementary teacher, and for her it was like, hey, not there's no stress. I just get to act every day for my kids and be bright and fun and do storytelling. So and then I was in there trying to make it in Hollywood or New York or places like that. So I think you just kind of look at it and you say, well, where do or work in churches or there's so many ways of telling stories and acting. I do English camps in Slovakia. I teach English camps in Slovakia and in the summers. And like one of the things that's popped up that's just become, we just we do skits, it's a summer camp, we do skits. And the kids loved it. Like they have loved it and they'll chant like, "Esteras," like again, and they'll want us to do the whole skit all over again. And that's just so much fun. Like I think one of the great things about theater is telling a story, and then when they like it so much, they yell that you should do it again. That's great. So delighting an audience, whether it's little kids, whether it's older adults, whether it's and telling a story can happen in so many ways. So I think that's I guess the performer, the actor just says, okay, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to do it full time? Do I want to do it part time? Do I want to let it bless a different aspect of my life I wouldn't assume to be acting, but I, regularly tell stories every day in this venue. Um, I would say there's definite, like you have to consider, I guess, what you're doing. And I like to talk with my students through that. If there are a lot of them that they just say, hey, I know I'm not going to go into this, but I just like the opportunity. And in musical, like say, for example, musical theater, you get to learn dancing and singing and acting and storytelling and like history and culture and so many things building. We build sets and paint sets and design costumes and things. So they learn a lot that they just think is a blessing in their lives. And they'll send me pictures later. They go, hey, look, I refinished this chair. Look, you taught me how to do this. And look, I sewed these curtains for my house. And, so they just love the blessing that it is in life. And they don't care if they make a living off of it or not. And they go into a lot of different professions. We've had people going to the medical fields, people going into law, people going into things, engineering or teaching or a variety of things. And then I have some that are like, hey, I want to do this for my life. I want to be an actor on Broadway. And so I think with the students who want to pursue it as a profession, then we'll talk through, hey, what is your life going to look like if you do this? And I think artists have to make a decision. They have to say, okay, do I want my art? Do I want it to be the thing that I make my livelihood off of? And then I have to make certain choices. I may not always get to do the art that I like, but I do need to do the art that is getting paid for. And
Right.
so and so you might take on a like voice acting job or an advertisement or something, and as you're waiting for that dream role you've always wanted. And so then you make those decisions and then you get to do the thing that you love all day. But sometimes it might be stressful or it might not be the salary currently that you're hoping for. And eventually it might be the
Right.
best salary ever. And then some people say, hey, I want to do this. Like let me just get that side job, that other thing, so that I'm not stressed about money. And then I can do this in the evenings and still enjoy this art form. I'm not stressed. I'm not worried about it. I can just do it for fun and
Mhm.
to influence the community that I'm in and, enjoy it that way. So it's kind of just go through the process of asking questions of that.
Okay. And how about for those that may be interested in setting up a program like you've done? Is there, if they say, well, I want to do that for my career, is there a
Uh-huh.
career path in that, or is that another one of those, hit or miss? You're either going to make something off of it, or you're barely going to make anything. You're going to give it away. What about that
Uh-huh.
aspect of it?
I think it can be a career path, and there's so many different ways you could do
Mhm.
it. So, it could be creating there's a lot of people who do like teaching theater in schools, like in public schools, like, and they've got a venue, because if you're thinking making a business of it, you've got to think, what's my rent? What's my storage cost? What's my, performance area space cost? How much am I paying per who's bringing this in and everything? And then of course there's, renting retail space and making that, um, you know, permanent and then paying the monthly bills for that, whether you have a high class size or low class size. Or there's like working as a group like we do out of a church with lower building costs because we're sharing space, rental space, and then, performing at the church or renting temporary space somewhere in a large theater. So
Mhm.
I think there's so many different pictures of what the economics of that look like. Um, so, and I would be happy to talk with anyone that was, interested. Hey, shoot me an email, and I love to chat about what I've done, what's gone well or not well, and what I would recommend. And I think ultimately it's going to depend on that person that's doing it, why they're doing it, what kind of group they're going to try to create. And for me, I think the community aspect of it is so important, which is one of the reasons that I took this other job. So currently I am working a full-time job and doing this as well, I'm not really actually getting paid currently, but able to offer it to more people in a setting and keep doing the big Broadway shows. Broadway shows are so expensive,
Mhm.
like it's crazy just to pay for the rights to do the Broadway shows. And then to clothe all the actors. And right now I don't charge my actors to pay for their own costumes, which a lot of production companies do. So it really depends on some production companies just say, hey, you have to get your own costumes, and you also have to pay for a class, and you may or may not get into this show. And
Mhm.
at Salah, you sign up for the class and you're in the show, and I'm going to get you on stage as much as I can, and I'll pay for your costume. So now I know I could just say, y'all pay for your own costumes and like lower cost there and, raise cost, tuition cost. I could create a variety of scenarios. Currently, I'm really trying to keep it as affordable as I can for people to be able to join, even if they're not like hugely independently wealthy.
Right.
But it does cost, there's a legitimate cost. It's worth a price. But and I'm doing the other, jobs so that my stress of my own just rent and gas and all that isn't putting a weight on Salah. And so I'm just able to say, okay, can Salah pay for it itself? So that's the choice I make, but that might not be the choice everyone makes. It doesn't mean that I can't, work full time, answer phone calls 24/7. Um, so, that affects it, but Sailor kids are great. We have a lot of volunteers that come in and help. And, they know, hey, just not going to get an answer to a phone call until after 3:30 p.m. And then, we'll go from there. And they're great with that. And we have a lot of volunteers, and it works really well. So um, I think every business owner would make their own choices on if they want to be full-time, if they want their own space full-time, how much they're going to be able to charge for that. So, I mean, I think it's doable, and I think people will pay for, I think sometimes I think, yeah, I think some of our guys would definitely pay for permanent retail space where they don't have to move chairs back and forth every every week. But there's a lot of community in moving chairs together. So, um,
Yeah, and talk about the responsibilities. Obviously, you're responsible for most, if not every aspect of Sayla and the production company. But what's life like? How do you balance? You work full time, and then when you get off work, I guess maybe you get something to eat, take a little bit of a break, and you're right on to the next thing. And you're always doing productions. Talk briefly, if you will, about what the responsibilities look like for someone in your position that's running a theater program.
um, um, currently I'm pretty much constantly doing theater. So but hey, I'm single. I have a very simple family life currently, somewhat, but I do think family is important. And so I make those priorities. And sometimes I say, hey, this is, I need to have some personal time, or I need to have some time with my sister or parents, or, so, but I think I have a lot more free time than maybe some folks would have currently. Um, and so I teach 3 evenings out of the week and a Saturday morning. That's my just basic week. So I've got 2 evenings of the week and the rest of Saturday to get ready for those 3 evenings. So it's not just the hours that I show up to the rehearsal time that I'm working, because all the other hours are preparing for those hours I'm teaching then. So and some weeks, some days I teach 2 hours instead of four. And so I've got half an evening there to like get ready for the next class. But it does mean that it's constant prep. So if I'm gonna run some scenes the next day, I've got to make sure I've got the scripts ready to go. There's a lot of, casting, script preparation. If we're doing a dance, I need to know how I'm doing it or communicate with the choreographer. And we are really blessed with several people doing choreography and several people doing vocal help and a music director. So I more just coordinate everyone that's all the volunteers helping in all of these aspects. So, which we couldn't do it without all of our volunteers. But it does mean, and a lot of, and then there's just that answering emails from, and we get people emailing us constantly. I think there's still two people just emailed me this week, wanting to register. So, that's just always there as well. Just questions, random questions that come up about
Okay.
theater.
This week there was a story about this new quote unquote AI actress. I think that's oxymoronic, but what is your take on artificial intelligence and its role, if any, in the arts? And also, are there deleterious effects of AI in the creative arts? Do you see that happening as well?
It's interesting to watch. Yeah, I saw an article about the actress. She looks great. I think it's incredible what AI is able to do. That's really incredible. I think that, I don't know, I'm curious to see if she's able to represent a character so that we believe the character or not. There's a YouTube. I need to find out who did this YouTube short, but he compared an AI actors, a couple of AI actors to a couple of real actors, and like this is how they did it. Like this is how Brad Pitt did the scene. And it's interesting to see that AI a lot of times is very consistent. They always do something a consistent way. And so an actor sometimes brings a depth of emotion or a variety of ways that they express themselves that an AI generated model might or might not be able to get. I think when I see, and I'm always reading, say, AI created papers. So I teach writing as well as theater. And so I've been able to observe what ChatGPT can do with a paper. And so now I'm interested to see what AI can do with an actor. But I think that it's probably going to be very similar to what a ChatGPT generated essay or creative story is going to look like. And what I observe is, I find I'm actually a really nice teacher, and I really never expect that any of my students are doing anything wrong. And so then somebody does something wrong, and it takes, oh wait, they meant to do something wrong. Like I thought everybody was good in this world. And I usually am never like, oh, I bet they cheated on this essay. I'm just reading the essay. I've got 40 essays I'm trying to read through, and I'm reading one and I'm just thinking that doesn't sound like their voice. And it's not like that they use bad grammar or anything. It just doesn't sound like them because everyone has a cadence, like a way
Sure.
that they speak and words they tend to use and not use. And you could have two really excellent grammatically correct people speaking, and they would just express themselves differently. The way they go into an argument or the way they tell a story, it's going to sound different. And so then I'm reading this other paper, and basically with ChatGPT, it takes all the styles of all the writers and it combines them into one style that's very, very like general and perfect, but very general. Kind of like, and if you like, get into like how to develop your voice as a singer or how do you develop, your voice as a writer or as an actor, you want to be unique so people remember you. The thing you don't want to do is be that person everyone forgot because you were perfect, but nobody like actually remembered you as being different than anybody else. So like that's why like on The Voice, TV show, they're always trying to find like that voice, that special voice that's unique and has something new to bring to the scene, right? So what ChatGPT does is it combines all the voices and then makes all of them blend together and sound like the same voice. So I kind of feel like maybe AI actors might be in the same situation where they might just look like very basic, probably very basic. So I'm interested to see. I think there might still be something out there for good actors that bring that individuality and uniqueness to a role because they've actually felt it and they know the variety of humanity.
You seem a little more supportive of it than I am. I can't stand it. I'm finding myself to be something of a Luddite, but I don't trust it. I think it's digital plagiarism. I mean, it's stealing. They've stole it for years, 20, 30 years now, a little bit at a time, ripped us off without our permission, no compensation, and now they're using it against us. I think that's a bit pernicious personally, but who knows what the future may hold. So you don't see it as the death knell, or I guess maybe one of a few death knells for real actors. You don't see
It's
it like
interesting.
that.
My principal at my school, when ChatGPT came out, we had to start studying it immediately. So I talked to a whole bunch of people about ChatGPT, like, what do you think? What's going on? And my principal said, hey, this seems bad, but I don't walk to Walmart anymore. So, cars came along and maybe it's healthier to walk, but cars came along and we're all driving around. So as a school, we've been focusing on, okay, well, it's here. So now what are we going to do with it?
Mhm.
And I think I'm just sort of generally like well, let's figure out what's good or bad about this thing. And I think just like maybe not worrying about it too much because that really doesn't do any good anyway. So just, hey, it's here. What is that? What is that going to do? And obviously I just, I can see the harm of ChatGPT. I can see it in my students of they're not thinking for themselves. So
Right.
they're not thinking for themselves. So they're not going to learn critical thinking. So if we don't have actors learning acting. I mean, when you practice acting, you actually get in someone else's shoes, and that makes you, that then develops your understanding of humanity and helps you understand people around you. So if we're not participating in that process, then, how are we growing, I guess, as people?
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. There's something about the human experience. Only humans can really relate to other humans. But Michelle, if people want to find out more about Selah and maybe talk to you about theater, or whether it's joining your program or they have aspirations, as we mentioned earlier, of maybe doing something like this on their own, where's the best place for them to find out information to contact you?
So say Selah Arts, that's SELAHARTS.org. And like I said, super busy all the time. So the website isn't always very, very current, but there is a comment, there's a let's get information here. And you can email send a message through that website. And then that'll go to my email and I'll get to it. Sometimes when we're in production, I can't answer every email, but I'll always, before registration for the next registration time, I'll make sure and respond to all the emails of people interested in becoming a part of the show. So, and we have new shows starting every season. So, every semester. So we'll have a new set of shows starting up in January. So we always have shows starting up in August and perform by the end of the fall semester, and shows starting up in January, performing in the spring semester. So
Okay. Well, very good. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your history and some perspectives. And it's great seeing the program develop. I think that's what everyone that gets into this ultimately hopes for. And it sounds like you've been very successful. So, and it's also great to have a theater with a Christian emphasis. That's sorely lacking, I think. But I'm glad you're doing it. So I wish you all the best.
thank you.
Okay. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting our effort to share the news in print and on our extensive website, and now on our new YouTube channel. Contact publisher David Day at area code 409-943-4265 to support the Post newspaper today.